Alrighty, I'm going to get started here. I have a new video for you today called The Game. Let's start with the game board, aka the matrix, aka the hologram, aka Maya. It has 64 squares, that's 8 times 8, which equals 64. And that's really interesting, and you'll come to see why. 64 as in 64-bit operating system, like a computer system. A system that you would use to create something like a game, or at least to play a game. 64-bit operating system, welcome to the matrix. So you can see here the chessboard on the left, you got the little matrix picture on the bottom left, and then you have the chess game kind of in a green representing like the Matrix 3D game. So what if what we're actually partly in is now I'm not going to say it's computer generated, but let's say it's very much like the computer. In other words, it's a consciousness created reality with very restricted codes and systems that lock everything in place. Your RAM, which is your random access memory, keeps you in the game, the matrix, the hologram, in the drama. So you can see in the very center of the word drama you have the RAM, which is your random access memory. So things that have happened in your past experiences, they keep repeating over and over in your consciousness, and they create certain patterns, mental emotional patterns that keep you locked within the drama or the game board of the matrix or the hologram. Drama equals supreme being trapped in or playing within a complex system matrix via random access memory, which creates emotional patterns or lock-ins. And so here I'm looking at the word drama again, RAM, and the word Rama actually is referring to a supreme being. So Ram here, it says, this is from Wikipedia, Ram is the 7th avatar. An avatar is going to come into play a little bit later, or a little bit later in the slides. And in a few Ram-eccentric sects, Ram is considered to be the supreme being rather than an avatar. So let me just explain an avatar. Avatar is like an embodiment or an extension of a supreme being, and the supreme being is the supreme being. And I'm going to kind of go over how that may be exactly what we are doing in a particular way. But I'll revisit that whole supreme being and avatar bit a little bit later. I have to warm you up first. 64-bit operating system. And here on the right you see there are 64 I Ching hexagrams, a very ancient way of divination, seeing into the future and decoding all kinds of things related to health also. And what's really interesting about the 64 I Ching hexagon is that there's also 64 codons within the DNA. And I think that word is interesting, codons. You could also be thinking about code-offs. So within your DNA you have 64 possibilities of codes being turned on or off. In the I Ching 64, and ties back into the 64-bit operating system that we may be linked into. Let's go a little bit deeper within the whole 64-bit thing, shall we? A 64-bit operating system works off of a binary system or binary instruction code or codes and binary data. So 1 is like on and a 0 is off. So you've got binary means 2. So you've got basically, it's amazing how the computer works. Basically you have an on and off. A bunch of ones and zeros at the very foundation of a computer, and how all these, makes up pictures, it makes up videos. It's amazing what it creates. So basically binary system on and off is what a 64-bit operating system works off of, which is really cool. The game board below this whole chessboard is binary. The game board has two opposing yet complementary colors. One is light, one is dark. That is the binary code. So right now you're looking at a 64-bit. So this chessboard looks pretty innocent, but basically in a complex way you're looking at a 64-bit binary code system right there within the chess game board. Light and dark, on and off, yin and yang. Without the binary code, there would be no physical reality or game board. So we have to have the light and the dark, the on and the off, and the yin and the yang. Now they are complementary forces, but they can appear to be opposing forces, fighting forces, but ultimately they're actually just two aspects of one thing. But in this reality, what we find ourselves in this game board, they appear as opposing forces, on and off, light and dark, yin and yang, so that we can experience a particular reality. We need a binary code, opposing movement, a system, matrix, hologram, whatever you want to call it, and drama to have a game. But wait, where are the players? Well, let me tell you, it's a freaking trip. The players are created out of or within the system. Hold on to your backgammon boards because this next part is going to be some trippy ball stuff. Let's start at the beginning. From the Zen aspect, we have yin and yang. So you have the white and the black, yin and yang. That's the white and the black squares on the chessboard. The sperm is yin, related to physiology, and the egg is yang. On a quantum physics level, you can even look at the sperm. It's a wave, okay? And the particle, which is basically just a form of matter or a point of matter, is the egg. And matter in Latin is mother. So it's interesting, the feminine is the matter and the wave is the sperm. So here we have quantum physics within the physiology and within yin and yang, going back to the whole Zen of everything, if you will. Yin and yang come together and an orgasmic explosion of creation, a big bang. So here we have the wave and the particle coming together, the white and the black, and they create the one. You are the one, Neo. So one becomes two. So I'm going to go into the cell division, and as I do the cell division, I'm going to be showing you how the board opens up. So you are in a game board, or on a game board, and the other crazy thing is that you are created out of the game board, out of the coding that creates the game board. And not only that, but you're not only in a program, you are yourself a program. That's the trippy part. Okay? So one cell divides into two, and you get a line or a plane. Then the two becomes four, and you actually get a 3D shape. So you can see the triangle at the top. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4 points, and that's when 3D reality is created. On the far right, you can see the cell division there related to that stage of division. You can see 4 squares on the chess board, and that little triangle at the top, or pyramid, is called a tetrahedron. It has 4 points. 4 becomes 8, and if you have 8 points, you get a cube, or you get a star tetrahedron, which is really prevalent in the New Age metaphysical information. Basically 8 points, and on the right you see the cell division related to that. It's basically a star tetrahedron. So not only in the womb is this related to like coding, but the sacred geometry is referring to this life division as we come into this reality. And what's more sacred than life? So sacred geometry means life geometry, life shape, life structure. So 4 becomes 8, and a cube, or basically a cube and a star tetrahedron, have 8 points. 8 becomes 16. It gets really complicated and hard to follow at this point because the cell division happens so fast. I can't go into all the details here. You can do some research on your own. But 8 becomes 16, and the 16 becomes 32. You can think about a 32-bit computer system. Once the cells become too numerous to be counted easily, which usually happens around the 32nd or 64th cell stage, what happens is they stop terming it any particular way. They're just looking at it as an developing embryo. So here we have 32 squares of the board revealed, and then 32 becomes 64. On the right in the yellow here is a 64 tetragrammatron. And Nassim Harameyn's work all about the black hole is really interesting. He goes into the black hole, the shape that supposedly is around the galaxy. I believe it's there also. When I was doing some research for myself, I was Googling some pictures because it came to me that the chakra system is this creates this toroidal field around the body. So I was Googling some pictures, and I came across his work, and it was mirroring. Of course, he had a lot of deeper aspects to it, but it was mirroring a lot of what was going on and what was coming to me in my research. So, now that that's happened, congratulations. You have successfully grown your own avatar. Basically a vehicle to embody and have an experience in this reality. Basically a 64-bit DNA, and you've grown your own little avatar. And just like in that movie, The Avatar, you can embody that and live in it, work in it, and do all these things. Your avatar is made of the same stuff as the game board, the code. Therefore, it isn't really you, since we are infinite and we have free will at our largest level. When we come into this reality, we buy into all the rules and all the restrictions. So basically, the avatar is a vehicle you embody or merge with so you can play on the game board. The merging is so complete that when you have something shift within your consciousness, the body will reflect that, and we'll go over that here in a second. You are in a coded and programmed system, and you yourself are a coded program. Let me read that again, because that's the trippy part. I actually wrote that wrong, sorry. You are in a coded and programmed system, and you yourself are a coded program. In a way, like what they did in the movie, the Avatar. Like people do all the time. You can see here on the bottom right, this little point of view video game. People that play video games, they have the screen there. They're looking from point of view. It looks like they're really in the game. Other than having certain physical sensations, which actually, if they had physical sensations along with the point of view and they were locked into it, it would seem really real. And what's interesting is our technology is advancing so quickly that lots of things are coming out that you could pretty much simulate reality to a very strong degree, at least with the senses, related to the senses. Let me go over some of the pieces. The queen is the most powerful piece on the game board. There is a reason for that. It's through the queen, the feminine, that we emerge on the game board. So you can see here with this tarot card, the High Priestess, you see the pillars, the black and the white. You also see in the center of the board here, there's like the pillars related to the Tree of Life and the Kabbalah, and it's about manifesting the body. And then just a couple of other representations of the pillars and the Tree of Life. So the Tree of Life that you hear about in Genesis is us coming into this reality, into this body. There is a dualistic aspect to all the pieces and players. This is because the players are created and generated from a binary or polarized game board code. So there's good and bad in this reality, and people can fluctuate from different roles that they play in because the binary system itself is split. The queen keeps the bishop by her side. The queen keeps the bishop, the church, close because she uses it to bend, hide with misinformation, and create new rules. The queen is then able to stay on top of the throne or ruling by implementing her own rules. And here we have like the red queen. And I'm going to bring that in here in a second. So the bishop, there's lots of truth in religion, but there's been lots of things that have been rewritten and twisted to twist your belief system and your ability to work within the reality you're in. It basically limits you, but it doesn't have to limit you. It's because we buy into certain limiting, not programs, but lies that appear to be rules, but it's not true. And if you believe it, if you believe a thing, then you have to follow that rule. So it's really important that you be aware of what you believe and that you be very picky about what you believe. Because if you believe it, you've got to follow those rules. That is the number one prime. If you believe something, you follow it. And that's if you unconsciously believe it or consciously. That's the tricky part. The game rules are codes we knowingly or unknowingly follow. Like any game, there are rules, some known and some unknown or hidden. One of those hidden codes we operate off of unknowingly is feng shui. Even if someone has never heard of feng shui, I can walk in their house and read their consciousness, their mental emotional blocks, their fears, their worries. I would be able to read a lot of stuff. That isn't a brag, it's easy. Anybody can do it if they know the code. I can do the same thing with somebody's body. It's one of my specialties because I've studied the hell out of all these codes. or not maybe all of them, but a lot of them. So here we have the feng shui, and that's the crazy thing. I've gone to I don't know how many people's houses, and they don't even know about feng shui, yet their house totally reflects that. It's a code that's ingrained within our body and our DNA because we're made from the code. If you're made from the code and the code's within you, there's got to be an awakening to get outside of the code. Otherwise, you're bound to it. You're ruled by the code. When a player first wakes up to the game, they start learning about the myriad rules, codes from feng shui to the enneagram to astrology. The list goes on and on. This game is full of rules, some ancient and some new. Yes, astrology is a code, a set of rules you unconsciously play the game by. But maybe you don't have to play them by those particular rules. Maybe you could actually change your astrology, change your enneagram, change your stripes. Understanding the rules helps you play the game better. Placing a statue of intertwined giraffes in your relationship gua will help draw to your relationship. Actually, just knowing that is freaky, right? So you can work with these rules and change your reality. But here's the crazy thing about the rules, or even playing within the rule system. If you're playing within the rule system, there is a limitation built into them. Because if you have to play by a rule, or you have to use a particular system like feng shui, then you're bound by the rules of feng shui. So if you do something improperly feng shui-ly in your house, then you're causing a problem. Does that make sense? So the rules that you're playing by, even if you know them, wind up limiting you, limiting your life. If you want to win the game of your life, you have to go beyond the imposed rules. Every rule is a limitation, it has a limitation in some way. Play by the rules and you'll be on the wheel of life, birth and death forever. Yes, the game is a little more controllable and fun if you know the rules, but all rules, all the codes, mental or symbolic, are made up from and within the system. If you use them, they are inherently limited. They do help, but. So these codes that you use, even the symbols, you may draw a symbol, like one of my favorite symbols has always been the Om symbol. The Om symbol actually refers to the ventricles within the brain. The Eye of Horus is actually referring to another system within the brain having to do with the pineal pituitary. All these symbols are actually referring to something. But even if you're working with the symbols are made up in the system. They're part of the codes of the system. So if you use them, they actually limit you. So you can play with them to a certain degree, but beyond that, they wind up being more restrictive than anything. It's like a belief system. Like if I wear a cross, that symbolism is going to lock me into a particular belief system. And that's why when you can see somebody wearing a cross, if you see somebody wearing a cross, you can pretty much guess a little bit, at least a little bit of what their belief system is. If you see somebody with an Om symbol or a pagan pentagram or pinnacle, then you're going to be able to tell right away by the symbol what they are believing in. And what they're believing in has limitation within it. So if you have a symbol, you use a symbol, you are locked into the rules of the symbol. Symbols can change things and they are somewhat empowering, but in the end, at the end of the day, they are, again, imprisoning. Think about it. Was Jesus a rule follower or a rule bender and breaker? All the masters of life were and are rule breakers. The rules are meant to keep you in the game, and in the game forever. These rules can be hard to break initially because they are tied into your DNA. This is why body issues can tell, if you know the codes, what is wrong with someone's mental and emotional RAM, their random access memory. And this has been one of my big studies, is that it's amazing knowing all these maps that you can look at somebody and literally, you can tell exactly what's going on with their mind and emotions by what's showing up in their body. And it freaks them out sometimes when you tell them how accurate it is. But the good news about this being hardwired into the rules is that epigenetics, which basically means that with a habit, whether it be physical, mental, or emotional, you can rewrite your DNA. So it's possible to change the rules and to change your DNA, to change your stripes. But the thing is you can't work within the particular system that you're in, because every system that is in this reality has a limitation. If it has a set of beliefs and it's not open-ended, then it has a limitation to it. So if we can redo our DNA, though, that means there are many possibilities. Basically, that means that we can change our R.A.M habits, our random active memory habits, which changes our emotional reactions, which changes our physical body. What happens when a lowly pawn makes it across the board to the other side? They get to choose what they're going to be. They can be anything, queen, king, or some other piece. Then and only then do they have free will. I'm going to change this already, because just because you make it across the board and you get to choose the piece that you are, you still don't have complete free will, okay? Because you're still playing in the game, right? As soon as you come across the board and you get to be this particular piece that you choose to be, you've got to turn around and go back into the game. It doesn't mean the game's over, right? Okay. What happens, I see what I did. I actually did 2 slides here. What happens when a slowly pawn makes it across the board to the other side? They get to choose who they are. They then have more power. But let me ask you this. Do they have complete 100% free will, or do they still have to play by the rules? Well, they got to still play by the rules because they're still in the game. What if I told you that the game board is even more complex than I've shared thus far? What if the game board is more like the board on the right, something like you'd see on Star Trek, right? Multi-layered and multi-dimensional. Multi-layered and multi-dimensional. And as we are multi-dimensional beings, locked into a specific time and space, locked into particular restrictions. I could seriously keep going on with this, and maybe I will later. However, for now, I think I'll leave it where it is. That's quite a bit, pun intended, to chew on. I'll leave you with this, though. You are in a system that runs on certain codes that control you, from astrology to feng shui to the ruling party. These rules and codes need to be understood, at least at the fundamental level, so that you can have the life you want and deserve. These rules can then be worked with and bent in your favor. What do you think your opponent is doing? These rules can even be broken, like a man losing half of his brain from shrapnel in war and has no negative side effects whatsoever from losing half of his brain. People break the rules all the time. What ancient rules are you letting govern your life force? What's in your random access memory, and what is locking you into repeating, locking you into playing the same old game over and over and over again, from having the same type of relationship, from having the same type of life that you have, repeating the patterns that your parents did and their parents? You've got to dig into that stuff to break free from it. Now, it's your move. I honor that place in you, that when you're in that place in you and I'm in that place in me, we are one. We are made of the same star stuff. We breathe the same air, walk on the same earth, and drink the same water. Namaste.